Well, hi. Well, welcome to the Fab Life.
Hello, everyone.
With Deb and Ryan. How are you? It is freezing out.
It is. Do you notice it stops snowing and then it gets bitterly cold?
Oh my God. We are
Can't
in
win.
such a deep freeze, and it's going to be below zero tonight. I mean, we're going to be like in the minus.
I walk like from here to my car, which you all obviously cannot see it, but it's not far. And it's like I'm frozen by the time I get there.
I know.
And yeah.
So, well, let's get started.
Yeah, let's
we?
get started. Yes. Let's get started with The Real Housewives.
Oh my God.
Beverly Hills, who we watched part 2 of the finale.
The finale.
And it was sort of like, I thought, a better glimpse of who these women are, who their families are, sort of the trials and tribulations that they've gone through. I thought it was really nice. I like that Andy brought out the husbands.
Yes, I was really, really happy, and especially Lisa's husband.
Yes.
Because he filled us in on their house guest.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Who had been living with them for over a year for free.
Yeah.
He didn't work. He was just using their pool.
He became part of the family.
He became part of the family. Lisa said that she even put him in her will.
Will, I know, I caught that too.
And then when they asked him to leave, he left, but then he went to visit her husband and demanded money.
Yeah.
Okay, and then...
And said, I will release things, which we don't know what those things are.
No.
But the way I took it, Deb, I don't think they gave him money, right?
No, he was trying to blackmail them.
Right. But I think they did say he's trying to get his own reality show, or he has this book deal or something. But who the hell's going to buy that book?
No, I mean, he's had his
The
15 minutes of
Vanderpumps
fame.
are the Vanderpumps. I adore them.
I adore them, too. And what about Kelsey Grammer's wife?
You know what? I have a different... you guys will remember, if you're following our show, I was very harsh on Camille, but I do have this sensitive spot for her.
I do now, too, because...
She was under a lot of pressure, and it does sound like, because Andy was not rejecting, it sounds like they cut a lot of, like, the good... They did portray her as the villain.
They did portray her as the villain, but, you know, we have to understand... While she was filming this, she was going through this terrible divorce.
Where her husband was.
Wondering where he was, what he was doing, who he was with. And then, of course, during the show, he actually broke up with her.
Right. While Kyle, who she had the most conflict with, has this faithful husband, so we see, you know, and we have no reason not to believe he isn't. And this wonderful family, cute kids, they're graduating. So there was a lot of, I think... Kyle couldn't understand where Camille was coming from.
And poor Kim. Kyle's sister Kim. She's not admitting to anything. And, I mean, she is in denial of her problems. And she really has a hard time communicating with other people.
She does.
You know,
and it was kind of awkward, but it was sad at the same time when Kyle and her sat next to each other. It was just like, you could tell, honestly, that's not scripted. No. There's some serious things going on with that family.
And also, what I thought was really interesting is that they all admitted to having plastic surgery.
Yes.
And Adrienne was asked, because her husband is a plastic surgeon, she said, no, I would never let him do plastic surgery on me, just in case he was angry at me one day.
Don't they have a great relationship?
They do, but you know, for this plastic surgery, I am all for it.
Deborah and I have had many conversations about this.
I'm planning on getting Restylane and getting
She's not lying.
I'm going to get things tweaked. Because, you know, when you get into your 50s and late 50s and all this stuff, you know, why not make yourself feel better? You have to spend $600 or $2,000, but still, you're going to look better and feel better about yourself.
You think so?
Oh, these women look great, and they've all had Restylane and Botox. I would never have Botox, though. I'm afraid of Botox. I don't want, like, a frozen face, like, hello, how are you? How are you, student?
Isn't this fascinating? I don't know anybody in my life that's done this, so I'm so excited for you to do this.
I am so excited, too.
I'm so excited.
So anyway, enough of Beverly Hills. We want to get right into the big news about Egypt and everything
serious.
That's going on.
We need to talk about it.
North Africa and, you know, all throughout the Middle East, because I find it quite odd.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's accidental. I'm not saying that somebody planned this, but it seems rather odd to me that first we'd have Tunisia as a kind of a run through. Then we had Egypt, the people overthrowing that government. Then Jordan, the king of Jordan, dismissed his government because
I did not hear that.
Yes, that was also they didn't make a big deal of it because we're very close to Jordan.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then there were riots and demonstrations in
Syria, right?
Syria. So I'm just wondering what's going on. If this is being kind of organized and scripted so we can get rid of all these tin horn dictators, or if it's just coincidence that Tunisia was the first and everybody else saw that they were successful and they're all sick of having either dictators or kings tell them what to do and they want more of a democracy.
Yeah. I'm so glad we're talking about this today. I really am. Now, Deborah, because I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot through these recent events about the Middle East. I mean, I'm an international relations, European studies specialist in my undergrad, but there's a lot. I mean, I'm young. I'm learning and through a lot of this and watching different foreign news networks, which I think is important.
Yes.
How strong is this Muslim Brotherhood?
Well,
because I think they are really, from my gathering, the masterminds behind this Egypt. I mean, they are going to be
part of it.
They're part of it, right? And they have a strong voice.
Yes, they do. But in the end, they only would consist of maybe less than 30%. And they've walked now out of the negotiations with Mubarak.
Right.
The Muslim Brotherhood has always been kind of the nemesis to President Mubarak because they would like to see a fundamentalist Islamic state in Egypt. Whereas one of the things that we liked about President Mubarak was that he ran a secular government. It wasn't a religious government.
That's right.
It wasn't a theocracy.
That's right.
Okay.
It wasn't Iran.
Right, it wasn't Iran. Although a lot of scholars are comparing what's going on in Egypt to Iran. But I think that you could only, in the end, really make a good analytic comparison only if Egypt became a fundamentalist Islamic state run by the imams and mullahs or whatever. You know what I mean? And then controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
But, all of these brotherhoods, and it's like the Hezbollah in Lebanon, where, we regard them as terrorists, but their own people, many of their own people, do not regard them as terrorists because they do a lot of good social work. They provide education, they provide money to people, they provide housing to people.
Well, they're very passionate about their country and their country's well-being. I mean, they're definitely not there to do disservice to their nation. That's definitely not, like you said, we call them terrorist groups, but that is walking a fine line, I guess, kind of.
Well, it is, because, one can't forget, and we said this weeks and weeks ago, that the Hezbollah, you can't forget, years ago, killed like 260-something of our Marines. That's right. Okay?
That's right.
So...
But that's interesting that because you're right, these are all coming up at the same time. I mentioned it at the end of our last episode. Again, as all this transpires, things are now not going the way they planned in Egypt. Correct. Now they're not agreeing. So now the idea of what will take the place of Mubarak is really up in the hand. Like, it's up in the air, I feel like.
He is replaced. Now, first he refused to step down. Then he said he will step down in 6 months. Then there was an article yesterday, the day before, that said that we're trying to get him a graceful exit so that he needs medical care and he would go to a hospital in Germany. Okay, while this transition is happening. But on the other hand, we don't see a big move on Mubarak's part to leave.
Definitely true.
So he may hang in there until the last gun is fired. despite the fact that he is being pressured from all sides to resign. The one thing, though, that I think is rather odd and kind of mean, I mean, President Mubarak is an Egyptian. He's an Egyptian Muslim. Okay, he's been a dictator. He's held on to power for 30 years.
Yeah.
But, why should the people be calling for him to leave Egypt? It's his country. Just let him resign.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Just let him resign in honor, at least, and appreciate the fact that he did 30 years for the people.
Yeah.
Sometimes...
Oh, and Egypt's done well. I mean,
because of us.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? That I just kind of... Yeah, that may not be true. I mean, we don't know the human rights violations and all of these claims that's going on. So for me to say that Mubarak did well, I should rephrase.
Well, no, it's not so much that he did well, but he did a lot for his country. For example, the military, he has the strongest standing army in the Middle East. However, that army is supported by your tax dollars in America.
That's right.
That military is being given $1.5 million, $1.5 million. No, $1 billion. Oh my God, $1 million. $1.5 billion every year to support his military.
But
now the people like the military, but hold on.
Yeah.
The one thing that he had and that was abusive was his police force. His secret police and his police force. And they were brutal against anybody who would say anything against Mubarak.
Right.
But it's just that, one has to balance these things. Okay, he should leave, and they should form a democratic government.
Right.
But on the other hand, give Mubarak some props. I mean, give him a little more graceful exit than calling for him to leave his own country.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would not want to be in the boardrooms of the administration of the Obama administration because I'll tell you what, you just said it, $1.5 billion to the military. That's not just for no purpose. There is an underlying purpose there to see how much Egypt means to us.
Well, we trust them. We trust them. We have always trusted their military.
And that dynamic's going to change.
And that dynamic's going to change. And what I'm really worried about is Israel. I am so worried about Israel. Because it was Egypt that kind of, they didn't protect Israel because they'll always be kind of enemies, but there were agreements.
Yeah.
And they kind of staved off invasions and huge attacks by other, extremist factions in the Middle East. And my fear is that if Egypt did become a fundamentalist Islamic state, well, we are going to have to, as we've always done, pledge to protect Egypt in any way that's possible. We cannot abandon Israel now.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Now,
yes.
What are your thoughts about the way the Obama administration is handling it? I mean the administration. I'm talking Secretary Clinton, and I'm talking President Obama specifically. I'm worried because you're right. We have to defend Israel, but I don't know if our administration is going about it in the right way.
Well, I'm not going to make a judgment on our administration because I'm not there. I don't know what's going on. Because, a lot of these would be secret messages.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely
a lot of these negotiations are going to be top secret, and I don't have access to that information.
That's absolutely true.
So I'm not going to make a judgment on that. I just hope that in the end, that Egypt becomes more of a democracy. The people have been asking for the right to free press, free speech, things that Americans take for granted.
Yeah.
And then also, excuse me just a moment. Okay, I hope that they become more democratic.
Yeah.
And that they're given really good elections. One of the things about having elections is that everyone gets to participate.
That's right.
And that you have, an oversight committees or whatever who actually count the ballots and just don't discard the ballots that have been cast for the people perhaps that you don't like, because we want the majority to rule here.
That's right.
Yeah, but like I said, my unending fear is that it would become a fundamentalist Islamic State. But this is what I was going to say. I don't think so, because you have a very, very young population in Egypt who are mostly extremely well educated.
Yeah.
But there are no jobs, and this is part of the problem.
Yeah.
They're graduating from college with wonderful degrees, but guess what? There are no jobs.
Yes.
Okay? And there's no money, and everybody is poor.
Yeah.
And then they see, like Mubarak, living in palaces, driving around in limousines.
And when we're talking unemployment, I saw a statistic that individuals who are 25 and under, the unemployment rate is something like 60 to 70%. It's atrocious.
Oh, it is. And
it's atrocious.
And then you get into areas like the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, where like the unemployment's like in the high 80s or 90s. I mean, it's just terrible.
It is. It is. So rightfully so, they want to change.
They do want to change. But, this is very problematic for us, because a destabilization, more of a destabilization in the Middle East is not really good for American security.
No. And I think if
and
you
its
have
interests in that part of the world.
That's right. And Deb and I are only scraping the upper surface of this. So you really should keep up on this, because I'm telling you what, in 2012, Obama's going to face a lot of... This is going to be... This is not going to end. And Obama's got to answer to a lot of the way he's reacted by Democrats and by Republicans. So I think that... Become knowledgeable of this, because this is not something that's going to disappear in 6 months.
Right.
I really don't think
so.
And
I think it's going to intensify in the summer. When I was down in Washington, I noticed that every summer, these intifadas between the Muslims, the Muslim Arab states in Israel would always intensify in June, July, and August, and sometimes into September. So I think that this situation will intensify this summer. So we'll see.
Interesting.
We'll see what happens.
Interesting. It'll be interesting to see what's happening with these other nations, too. And their governments and these riots.
Yes.
What really comes out of it. I think it's interesting, but it's terribly interesting that this is going on.
Well, on a happier note, what's happening in our own country is that the economy is showing signs of improvement.
It is. I just saw that, actually, today. Yeah.
I
read a little
article. I'm really
article.
happy about that.
Yeah. So things are happening good here.
Well, right, and you know what? Why I'm really excited, because in the last couple of years, so many people lost their homes.
Oh.
Through foreclosures.
Yes.
And then what also happened is that people, back 10 years ago, or even 5-10 years ago, were buying these huge properties for like $700,000, whatever, and today they're only worth like $300,000.
Yeah.
And so now these people still owe that money, but their property, they'll never get the money back.
No.
I mean, they've lost any profit that they could actually think of having in the house. But one thing I would like to see, and I know you're going to agree with me on this, that our government should do. I kind of think it's kind of immoral so that we have students who are graduating from our universities with a mortgage around our neck. Now, I know the good side is anybody who wants to get an education in America can get one. But then on the other hand, by taking out all of these grants and loans, I know students who owe $80,000 to $100,000.
Oh, yes.
Who are going to spend the rest of their life.
Yes.
And it has to end somewhere.
Yes, and the thing is about that is unfortunately the norm, Deborah. That's where the students
I know, but other countries don't do that to their young.
And you know what upsets me is our country is constantly pushing us. We need to be back at number one in math and science, and we need to be the leading country of education, innovation.
Well, we should
and
be.
I'm not disagreeing. Our education is still, phenomenal.
Yes.
But if we want to have the next great scientist, the next great mathematician, the next great poet, Deborah, we have got to start funding it for these people because while unemployment's going up, college tuition, college tuition's going up.
I mean, if we're going to give $1.5 billion every year to the Egyptian military...
That's exactly right, Deborah.
I mean, why not have $1.5 billion to just sustain your young people so they can get a great education?
That's exactly
and not have, this millstone around their neck when they graduate.
Yeah. And there's no...
I don't know.
But it's constantly pushed by every administration. We're going to send our kids to school. And
but see, that didn't happen in my generation. Because, I went through all of my degrees, and I don't know a dime.
Yeah, same.
But, I had a lot of, scholarships and things like that. But even
even the scholarships have decreased, though.
Yeah, the scholarships have decreased. Everything is decreasing. It seems like we have our priorities. We give... millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to actors.
Yes.
Okay, who, act badly in private. And then we give no money. Then we're loaning money to people who want to become a nuclear physicist.
You know what I noticed? And then we're giving money to Egypt, but yet we're borrowing money from the Chinese. Honey, we could go on for a long time, and we'll come back to these topics because they're relevant. Our show isn't just all about the housewives. We want our show to be educational and to be about the real subjects that go on in the real world.
Exactly.
And guess what? The Real Housewives, that is one sector of society, believe
that
it or
is
not.
one sector.
That is really how people live.
It's really sector.
But it's how people live.
Because they're so rich and we're so poor. But that's okay. I don't really,
they're no happier. They have more problems.
I have never aspired to great wealth.
Yeah, me neither, darling. I've aspired to be successfully, intellectually.
Yes, me too.
That's always been.
But I've aspired to be a kind person.
Yeah.
Okay, and a good friend to people, and a helpful person.
And she is.
Well, I don't know about that, but I aspire.
No, I know.
But that's what my aspirations are.
Sure.
But anyway.
Sure.
So that's it for today.
That is. So put a smile on your face.
Yes.
Things are going good here. We're only going to get better. We're America, and I know we can do it.
And it's going to warm up. Please, God.
Please.
All right.
The sun was out.
Yes, the sun is out. And it's going to be a heat wave next week. It's going to be in 35 degrees.
Liar.
Okay. So as you go through your day, just remember to stay fabulous. Bye.